Okay, so update on what I've been doing to this engine. We have got a rear seal. We got our rear seal replaced, which required the removal of this entire back plate as well as the flywheel. And what I've spent a good deal of time on has been this engine because of the severity of the rust. You know, I used a wire wheel and scraped and everything for a couple days on this thing, and finally just had enough. So what you see on there, it's not paint, it's actually a rust converter. And you know, supposedly it's supposed to go in and, you know, convert the rust over to like a primer type surface. So anyways, we'll see how it holds up. It'll be better than what it was for sure. And I know it's not meant for high temperature, but I'm hoping that maybe it'll hold up on this block for a little bit. And I thought I might go ahead, when I get a lot of this other stuff together, I may coat it with some high temperature paint and just see what happens. I know as far as like exhaust manifolds go, I have not had any success getting that high temperature paint to stay on there, but just a few days and it seems like it comes off. But you know, I've got my exhaust manifolds over here and they're just sitting over there. I took and got the rust off of them, which is, you know, about all you can really do. This is off of my old engine, and they were in a lot better shape than the ones that come with this engine. I mean, it was just really pitted. There's one of them laying over there, just terrible. But these, I just took a wire wheel to them, and I thought, well, I've got that rust converter, I'll just spray some on there, because I mean, it's just almost impossible to get it down to bare metal. So I'd put some on there to see what it's going to do. And I'm now in the process of going to put these on. I said, yeah, I cleaned up both sides though, you know, as best I could. And you know, put that rust converter on there. So it's better than it was, for sure. It's just been a mess, and I tell you, probably one of the worst jobs is the cleaning and stuff. And if you hate cleaning stuff up, then, you know, get used to it on one of these engines. They're really dirty. So, said I'm getting ready to put those manifolds on here, and if your engine hasn't been messed with, you won't have any gaskets at all. The manifolds will be bolted right directly to that surface there. And notice I got it taped over now. But with the rust and stuff, my main concern is this sealing, and that's why, you know, I had the original gaskets, and I decided I wasn't even going to take a risk with them and went with these Pro instead, because just the way that they're made, it seems to be a lot better as far as sealing, where you've got some, you know, some defects and stuff in there. So that's what I'm hoping. So I'm hoping that it's going to work out, because there's a lot of rust. I mean, it was just caked up on even under the exhaust and stuff. And on top of that, I had two places where the bolts snapped. One of them was already snapped off, and the other one I snapped removing it from this side. This is the only side I had trouble. It was the worst of the rust on this side here. So like I said, I'm just prepping the engine and getting stuff done, and I'm going to be torquing these down to 28 foot-pounds, I think, what we go on these. So I had a time, I spent the better part of a day removing those snapped off bolts. it just it's hard to get the little holes centered up even with a punch, and when they're broke off like that. And this one down here, I actually, after messing with it so long, I wound up getting it with a punch and turning it and got it enough to get it out of there. This one down here, I used the easy out. It worked fine. But anyway, so that's where I'm at. I've just I've painted my oil pan. I did have that stuff clean. It's getting dirty again as I'm up here working on this, but everything was clean down there. But we painted the oil pan, we put a new gasket on there, got a rear seal on, and right now we're just working on getting the exhaust manifolds on here and getting these gaskets on, torquing these down. And I'm going to be using some anti-seize. I just got some little packets. I usually always have some laying around, so, and it doesn't take a ton of it, you know, just, you know, a generous amount. That way when you go to messing with these again, though, the bolts hopefully will come out of there. So we're just going to go ahead and work on getting these exhaust manifolds on here now. Okay, I just wanted to go over a little bit of what I've got going on. I have got the seals in the oil cooler and got the new oil cooler in there, and we've got that torqued down. We've made sure that we got good seals for our high pressure pump. You can't see it, there's one right there as well. I know there's oil up around it there, but there's a new seal right there. Those are these two are very important seals, and when you get in here to replace them, you'll notice that the old ones are just flat. So there's a big difference. So right now, see, I've got new gaskets, I said, on my exhaust manifolds there. And I'm just kind of working my way up here, and what I'm going to be doing, this is our oil rail system, and the high pressure oil basically comes from your pump through these tubes, and then it connects to your standpipes, and you have those on both sides, and then it runs to your injectors. So I was just looking, I took one of the standpipes out of the side over here. I was looking it over. It doesn't look to be in terrible shape, so I don't know if I'm going to replace these right now. They are pretty hard to get to later if you have trouble with them. I mean, it looks like it had been updated. However, I don't see all these Teflon washers that it's supposed to have. I see like one right here. So I don't know. It has the big 12 millimeter Allen head, so I thought that was the updated one. That just goes in there like that, and it connects the high pressure oil. So this is just a dummy plug. It just goes in there and seals that off. So from here, these things run into the injector, so any problem with any of these seals is going to give you trouble. So if this is leaking, if you got leaks in the standpipe, you're going to have trouble. And on top of that, we have seals, I'll show you later. We've got seals in the oil rail that the fittings that go into the injectors, there's a O-ring on that part, those cups, and those need to be replaced to kind of be on the safe side. And like I said, I'm not sure. I didn't think these dummy plugs and standpipes look too terrible, but you know, I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do about it. Said also, we've got the seals that are going to be inside of our injector. We got a high pressure seal. Like I said, that cup that goes into the injector, it has to seal, so we're going to be replacing all the seals on the injector. So yeah, bottom line is we're going to be replacing the seals on our oil rail. We're going to be replacing all the seals on the injector and on top of the injector, and before we put this thing in the truck, and making sure that our high pressure oil system is going to be working right. Like I said, this was a running vehicle. However, I don't want to get, you know, 30,000-40,000 miles down the road start having trouble. So, and I'm kind of debating on what to do about these standpipes and dummy plugs, if I'm going to need to go ahead and replace them or not. So I've already took all of these torque bits out, and they run all down through here. Hold this in here. I've got those out, and this thing's actually ready to come out. Now when you pull it out, it's going to have oil in it. It's going to go everywhere, so you want to get you a pan or something. And said I'm going to get these out, and then I'll work on getting down in there and getting the injectors out. The injectors are the most work, so I want to get in here and get my injectors out and get to work on them, and I'll get the seals in my oil rail on those cups, and see about what I'm going to do about these. I think the standpipe and the dummy plug is going to be okay. This dummy plug down here was, the O-ring was 8 away on the one that was on there, but I took it off the other truck, so now I know that that one's fine. So I said I'm going to go ahead and get to work. And my next step is going to be taking these oil rails off of here. So I've got all these bolts out that hold it on, and I've got them cleaning them up right now and some solvent and stuff, so I can't show you what they look like. But there's so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. See, 8 or 9 of them there. Yeah, I got like 9 of them. So holding it on, and like I said, when you're in the truck taking this out, you'll have to take these out before you go to pulling this off. You know, I don't think you could fit it out anyways. If you did, you might run the risk of bending it and messing it up, so you have to take those out for sure. You could do it with it out of the truck like this, but I have to take it off to inspect it anyway, so I just have to get it on out of there. Like I said, it takes a pretty good size hex, and I didn't even have one of those, so I had to get one of those. The biggest I had was a 10mm, so those take a 12mm, and the old ones I guess took a 10, but the updated ones take the 12. And anyways, I'll follow up when I get to taking these off of here. Okay, and here's a view of this with the oil rail out of the way, and I can show you the oil rail later. I've got them draining in a pan. I'll clean them up a little bit. It does have quite a bit of oil still in those. And here's the top of your injectors, and there's a seal that's very important right in there. And chances are, unless they got different injectors, that those don't, a lot of people won't replace those. It's possible, but you know, it's been a while since this truck, this engine's been messed with, I can tell. So we're going to be doing all of the O-rings and the seals on those injectors. And there's your bolt right down there, or your Torx head bolt. And there's another one. I know when I was taking the oil rail loose that all of the Torx bolts were boogered up a little bit, so I swapped them off the other engine. I don't know if they had the wrong size or what. I really can't tell on these so far. They don't look just too terrible, but I'm going to use the better of the ones, because that's just something that can give you problems later on, and there's just no sense in using something like that if you don't have to. So these are the injectors, and we just take that out of there, and there's a tool for removing these. I think I used a socket, can't remember the size now, but I just slip a socket over this thing and it pops right through. You're pushing on these tabs is all it is, and you're able to slip that through. But you do have to be careful, and you don't want to break those, because then they're not going to stay put. You can see how the tabs lock around that edge there. So that's all we have to do is push that back with something round. Like I said, they make like a special tool, but I just use a socket that fits around it the best and just push them right through. So we have to push that through to be able to get the injector out. So that's the first thing we'll have to do, is push those through, and we'll work on getting these Torx head. That's the only thing that holds it, that injector in there. So we're going to go ahead and do that at this point. Okay, and I'm using a 18mm is what I used here. And when these are in the truck, you're not going to be able to see them like this. It's, more difficult. So that's why a socket, or like the tool, it's just a round tool that like sits over it, and that's why it comes in handy, because you can't really see what you're doing. But you just kind of slip this over here and see how I snapped it on there. That's an 18mm, and let's see if I can, okay, there we go. Had to put it down just a second while I pulled on it, but that's all I'm using. So, if you don't have the special tool sitting around, a 18mm will work, and you just seen me do that there. So that's how I do them. So we're just going to get all those pushed through. I'm going to do the same thing on that side. While I'm working on this, I'm just going to get all those pushed through. Okay, now when you go to removing these, you're going to need you a long Torx headed bit like this. Otherwise it's not going to work if you have a stubby one. You're going to not have clearance to get in there, and you'll be hitting the side of your injector. So you're going to need a long one, and well, I guess that thing's probably like 3.5 inches or so, but you'll need to get you a set. I bought a pack of these specifically for this truck, and this is a T40 that's going in there. So that's all there is to that. We're just going to go ahead and break those loose. Okay, so I've got these injectors loose, and you'll just pull this whole thing up and out of here. Now, like I was talking about, you can tell somebody had been in here and messed with a lot of this stuff, and it'd probably been a while, but you can see how the heads of these Torx bolts are kind of boogered up a little bit. I'm not really too crazy about that. The ones on the other truck were not messed with at all. I mean, I don't know how that happened, maybe using an impact, or I don't know. I haven't done that to any that I've messed with, but anyways, I will swap them off of my other truck, and it, or the other engine. It may not be a big deal, but like I said, I want to use the best that I've got. And so you just pull this whole thing up and out of here with the clamp and everything. And that's all it is, and it just holds. And you can see the assortment of rings on here. There's also a copper washer on the bottom of this that we're going to replace, and we'll get to that. So you see down in that chamber there. So we've got all this, the O-rings and everything to put on here, and like I said, we've got the ones for the top of, and we have to get this one out too. There's a little C-clip in there that's kind of difficult, but I did have me a nice board that was drilled out to hold these, and I've since gotten rid of it, I guess. But it made it nice for me to clamp onto my table and to work on this. So I'm not for sure what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean them up a little bit and probably just take them inside and mess with them. And I'll just kind of keep track of where they come from so I can put them back in the same spot here. But I've got them all completely loose where I can just pull them out of here. I'll probably just pull off one set at a time. Like I said, once we get these on here, we'll get these back into place and torque them back down. But yeah, I don't like those, you know, being messed up there, and I'm going to get the clamps off of my other engine over there. So that'll be something else I'm going to swap over, but it's no big deal. And okay, so and I was just going to show you these Arp studs. I actually got it engraved right there on the head of that thing, which is kind of cool. It says ARP 2000. Couldn't see them out here on these because these are on the outside and got the rust and everything a hold of them. But these head studs, I don't think I've seen any less than $400 and something. They usually run over $500 on average for these, and I think there's a crazy amount of torque. Like they have to be torqued 220 foot-pounds or something, if I'm remembering right. But a lot of torque on those. And these are really a must. Head studs are a must on this engine because the way that it was designed, I guess they were saying there wasn't enough bolts per cylinder. So these head studs make up the difference because they have such a tremendous clamping force that it makes up that difference. So I mean, they're really a must, and you can get by without them, but it's risky. You know, everybody that is bulletproof in these, they're putting the ARPs, and they're going through and, you know, upgrading a lot of stuff. But anyways, that's going to be my next step, is just getting these injectors out and doing the O-rings and stuff on them. Okay, so at this point in the process, we have got our injector resealed, new O-rings, got them back in. We still have to get the seals in our oil rails. We have to take those cups out of there. So that's going to be something we're going to have to get on. I've got a tool for that. And right now, what I'm wanting to do is get this seal in this torque converter. So we're going to have to get in there and manhandle that thing out of there. So that's what I'm going to be working on right now. Okay, and here's this thing out of here, and it's pretty massive, pretty heavy, and luckily I didn't have a lot of fluid pour out of there. But now we get in there and access that seal, and I'm hoping I got the right one. I'm sitting there looking at this thing, and it doesn't look like the one that I have in the box, so I'm going to have to grab it and do a comparison here. Okay, here's the replacement, and it does in fact look to be right. And you see how it's got a metal lip that goes on there and makes contact with that flat surface. We're going to put it in there like so, and we'll lube this really well I just usually put assembly lube, but I just checked it and it did look like the right size. I thought the one in there looked larger. This is what I'm using, and here's the part number. So what I usually do is I'll get in there and I'll get a hole in this, and I'll get a screw started and just push that thing off there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drill a small hole into the one that's in there, and I'm going to get a screw started with a little bit of a flat end on it so I don't damage anything in there, and we'll just push that old one right off. But definitely want to take the time to do this. You don't want to do all this work and then leave a leaky seal in there that you can't get to after the fact. And like I said, I see fluid in there. Don't know, it's probably transmission fluid, you know, don't really know, could be oil, but this truck's got 220,000 miles on it, so it's due to be changed. So we're gonna go ahead and get that off here, and we'll work on getting that one back in. Okay, I kind of underestimated this difficulty of getting this seal off, but I had to punch. I messed up over here, had to start over, had to punch a hole because there's not much to get a hold of there, and I managed to get a small screw in there. Like I said, it doesn't take much force once you get a good bite, but if you don't get a good hold of it, then it's not going to go anywhere. So anyways, we got that. So we'll go ahead and get our new one in here. Okay, and I just took some assembly lube and lubed around that thing really good, and I've taken a clean piece of 2x4 and I've just tapped all around this thing and seated that metal lip tightly up against there. So you can use whatever you want. This is what I use. Every time I have one with this metal lip like this, I just use a piece of 2x4 and just make sure that it's seated all the way around. And like I said, we lube that seal really good. I'm going to also wipe this out right here, and we will wipe our shaft on the torque converter and go ahead and get it placed back in here, and we'll make sure that we get it seated properly. You know, you want to make sure you got that double clunking, and make absolutely sure that you got it back in the position where it's supposed to be. Not even a bad idea to measure it before you take it out if you want to double check, because it is it's all over but the crying if you get the engine put up there and it's not seated properly, because it's not going to bolt up, and then you got to take everything back apart again. And don't ask how I know this. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and just get this cleaned out a little bit and get our torque converter back in. Okay, so we got that cleaned out a little bit now, and so we got that seal lubed, and I put just a light coating on that, so we're fixing to put this big thing back in. Okay, so we got that in there, and actually it clunked 3 times, so definitely don't be afraid to spin that several times and make sure you got that thing seated. Another thing, when we get ready to put this engine back in, we're going to have to make sure that our studs are in alignment with our flex plate or flywheel. So that's another thing that we have to make sure is lined up, so that way when we put this together, we'll be able to push that flex plate right onto those studs. So that's another thing that we have to be mindful of.